Hello everybody. So today, as we look at Bitcoin, nearly 124,000 a few hours ago, could break all-time high. We don't know. We are very, very close. And what do we find out? A lot of the stocks that I cover on the channel are spiking. They are spiking because it is all one big trade. That is the debasement trade. The bet that the dollar eventually, as Charlie Munger says, eventually the only guarantee in life is that the dollar is going to zero. That is the big trade that we do when we cover all of these stocks. So let's begin with MSTR, victorious MSTR over the past few days. We're flat today. It's true that Bitcoin's up a little bit, but frankly, given the outperformance that we had on Wednesday and the great performance we had yesterday, if you look at the overall 5 days, we're back to the correlation. This is no issue for me. He probably ATM'd a little bit. We will know on Monday. And also keep in mind that if you look at the intraday spikes and the intraday bottoms, oftentimes you have Binance who tries to, well, in this case, it would be liquidating the shorts, in this case, making the price go up. You have some amplification of the price of Bitcoin due to the market makers and the hyper liquid of the world and all of the stuff that I try not to follow, but that makes its way on my screen on X, because I'm not a trader. I try to not follow that stuff, but we need to be aware that there is manipulation. I'm not a trader, but there is manipulation out there. And so the price that is reached on a crypto native exchange is going to be different than the price that is reached on, say, an MSTR, which announces Bitcoin buys every week. Anyways, enough rambling. Let's talk about the big news today. MSTR, big news, the master move. It's a quality news today. It's the fact that all preferreds have been listed on Robinhood. Yesterday they weren't there, but you could not buy. Today you can buy them. And you can see, I don't know if these two had a phone call. I don't know if the CEO of Robinhood phone called Michael Saylor or vice versa. But Vlad Tenev announced that all of the strategy preferred stocks are available on Robinhood. This is a big deal. I actually looked at a few other corporate preferred stocks. They're not on Robinhood. It's only strategies that's on Robinhood. So I don't know what kind of rails they're using on the back end, because the Robinhood platform is not really equipped to handle anything but the mainstream stock. It doesn't handle OTC. It doesn't handle the preferred, but it was able to make an exception for the prefers of Saylor. Big question is, could it make an exception for the OTC stocks of the Bitcoin-based OTC stocks like the MetaPlanet of the world? That would really help them out too, if it were, because a lot of buyers of these companies are on Robinhood. You know, a lot of people who own Saylor's company, Strategy or MSTR, MetaPlanet, they're younger people. Younger people are not on Schwab. Right. But anyways, that's just the way it is. Sometimes you don't have a choice. By the way, the internet is starting to do its thing. I read this comment from HH here saying they received a margin call because they started a position when it was 50% and then they bumped it to 100%. So my guess is that the margin requirement was established to like the basic, and then it must have taken an hour or two to put it back to 100%. This is exactly what I told you in the last video. You can't do it just yet, because all of these preferreds right now have 100% maintenance ratio. So you can't do it just yet. I don't know how this person was able to do it, and then they adjusted the number. No, it's 100% maintenance ratio, and it typically takes them months, sometimes a year, in order for these maintenance ratios to come down. So you can't do it just yet. However, what you can do is, maybe you have other stock, maybe you have Tesla stock, Apple stock, and you don't use any margin. Maybe you can take that margin to buy stretch, and then in that case, you arbitrage. But your ability to hold stretch is due to you owning stocks that have nothing to do with stretch, right? You could probably do it against MSTR too, borrow a little bit against MSTR and buy stretch and use the stretch interest to pay the margin loan, the margin rate. What I will say on this, of course, not investment advice on this channel. I'm not a registered investment advisor, but what I would say on this is, I wouldn't do it. Like I would not do that. I'm not a big big passionate person about margin. To me, margin is useful when you have a big drop in the price and you want to take advantage of an opportunity. That's when margin is the most useful to me. Otherwise, I don't use it much. But if I did, I would buy a more explosive assets. Stretch, STRD, STRF, I definitely would not buy those. The only preferred that I would buy is Strike, because I look at Strike. Strike, in my view, is a dual bet on the interest rates going back down and a bet on Sailor doing well because you get that call option in Strike. Strike is the one I find the most interesting. Clearly, Stretch, STRD, and STRF will be attractive to a lot of income investors. A lot of income investors will love this. This is a big deal. So this is a quality news that we had today on MSTR. And of course, the Stretch stock still trading very well today. So I'm looking forward to see if he actually ATM'd on it or not. He may not have because he's waiting until 100, but technically he can because we are past 99. Mara. Let's talk about Mara now. So other stocks that are kind of crazy today. So, and the reason why I talk about Mara is because Mara is still too cheap. And I mean, arguably STRD and MetaPlanet are still too cheap. And KULR too. So all the stocks I talk about today, they're part of a big trade. And I believe we're early in this trade. But Mara particularly is still too cheap. When you start comparing Mara to CleanSpark or Riot, you see, CleanSpark, we're almost back at an MNAV of 3 of CleanSpark. CleanSpark was at an MNAV of 2-ish for the longest time. And Riot, we've entered the stratosphere with an MNAV of 4.5. So to me, I mean, these are great companies, don't get me wrong, and I own both. And they're great companies, but I'm not interested in adding to those right now with those MNAVs. They've bounced. When I look at Mara, I mean, Mara is still heavily correlated to the price of Bitcoin. The Mara bounce has essentially been the Bitcoin bounce. And it makes very little sense to me. It's trading at a 1.05 MNAV. So Mara is trading only at 5% more than the value of their Bitcoin bag. Does that make any sense? Because they have access to just as much power as the other guys. In fact, they have access to more power than some of these guys. I think both of these guys, they have access to more power, in fact. Not as much as Iron, but both of these guys, they have access to more power if and when fully developed. 1.7 gigawatt is what they're going to have. If that power has any value, then the price of Mara needs to go up. And so I think the market is very much mistaken on Mara. Mara is in the value territory in my view, and it's only a matter of time until the market recognizes that. Again, no investment advice. I want to talk now about KULR. So KULR, out of all of the stocks that I should talk about today, it's the one who's had the most explosive growth. We've had 2 back-to-back 14% days, right? Yesterday, Thursday, was already a really big day, and today we're up 14.4%, another very big day. Over the month, of course, the stock KULR is up 20%. There's a lot of reason as to why KULR is up. I can't really pinpoint it. I still think a lot of KULR being up has to do with the price of Bitcoin coming back up, because Michael Moe stated that they reduced the size of the ATM from 300 million to 150 million. Doesn't really make a difference because they hadn't really used it anyways. Like 22 million is what they used out of it. They had not really used that ATM anyways. So to me, this is a no news. There's no news. We're nowhere near even 150 million. It's accretive for Michael Moe to dilute KULR to buy Bitcoin because the MNAV is a 1.8 right now. So it's accretive. And we haven't done any of that, right? We've been stuck at 1,021 Bitcoin for the longest time. So you know, I understand maybe doesn't want to put pressure to the stock by selling the stock, maybe waiting for more institutions to own the stock. But this is a no news. But again, it makes the headlines, right? It makes the headlines, and so that might have helped the stock price positively. And of course, I think what helps KULR is the fact that their shareholder base deeply cares about the space stuff, the space battery stuff. And apparently they introduced this new product with like a new form of BMS in it that's like not as susceptible to, you know, space environment, like a better BMS, KBMS or something. BMS, of course, being essential for battery management system. Anyways, so people are excited that they're going back on their core products, which is, you know, space batteries. People are pretty excited about that. And that might have been a reason why the stock is back up. You see, radiation tolerant battery management system. That's what they introduced today. My thesis when I bought KULR, when I first bought KULR, my thesis was that the space stuff would give us a floor, would put a floor on the stock price. And I want to point that out. I like KULR very much. I still think it was a good buy, because if I look at KULR, so I bought KULR and I made my first video on KULR announcing my interest in the stock on July 10, 2025. That's when I bought KULR. You can go back to the channel. So I bought KULR on July 10, and right now with KULR at 546, I'm down 18% on the stock. I'm actually down less because I bought a little more when it had dropped after the split, after the 8-for-1 split. I bought a little more, so I'm actually down less. But if you look at the chart, down 18%. And you may say, oh, that's bad, oh, that's bad, oh, that's bad. Well, actually, when you compare to the other treasury companies that have been massacred, like let me show you the same time frame for MetaPlanet. This is the exact same time frame for MetaPlanet. Down 59.5, let's call it 60%. Down 60% for MetaPlanet versus down 18% for KULR. And you read the comments on KULR, you would think everything is going wrong for KULR. Actually, down 18% given the bear market we've had in Bitcoin associated treasury companies. I'll take that any day. And that's what I've always liked about KULR. It's you got both. You got Bitcoin and you got space. If Bitcoin's doing bad, space might be doing good. If space is doing good and Bitcoin's doing bad, well, space is lifting up the stock. You see what I mean? You have kind of like this dual-pronged approach. So that's why I like KULR very much. I like that the shareholder base is very much about space and perhaps a little less about Bitcoin than, say, a shareholder base like a MetaPlanet, who is just Bitcoin and very susceptible to outflows and inflows and all that sort of stuff. So KULR, hybrid company, I like it a lot. Lastly, and speaking of MetaPlanet, I first covered MetaPlanet on this channel on May 14. I covered it when it was trading roughly in line at 425 is when I covered it. A little less than 420. So the stock is up 4% since I covered it. Yeah, it's up 4% after dropping between 60 and 70% because it spiked over the next few months after I first covered it. Like it had a month and a half of spike, a huge spike, never went back there, and then it had a few months of spiking and then valley of despair as it has happened to a lot of treasury companies. It's hard to believe how cheap MetaPlanet has gotten. It is really, 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 really hard to believe. I'm roughly flat on my investment. I'm slightly down because I bought a little higher than 4 at some point. I bought around the 6 range, so I'm slightly down too, but not that much. I'm not worried too much. What I know is that under the hood, this company has outperformed tremendously under the hood, and it's gotten no reward by the market. Proof number one that it has outperformed, their full year guidance for Bitcoin acquisition, their Bitcoin target guidance for 2025 is 30,000 Bitcoin. As I speak, they have acquired 30,823 Bitcoin. They've beat their full year 2025 guidance. They have to upgrade that unless they don't want to buy more Bitcoin until the end of the year. So they've beat that. Their moving strike warrant strategy has really, really worked. They have harvested all of their premium to the point that now their MNAV is, between a 1.6 and a 1.3, depending on how you calculate it. Diluting through the moving strike warrant still generates a profit. It still generates a yield, let's call it between 25 and 30% profit. Printing a new MetaPlanet share generates, about 25 to 30% worth of profit to MetaPlanet. It's in line with MSTR. It's roughly the same as MSTR, the money they make when they print the shares. But what is special about them is, of course, their USA share offering, which they just did. And because of that USA share offering, which, by the way, it's not dilutive, but it's not accretive. From what I understand, the price that they did it is neither dilutive nor accretive. It's kind of flattish, maybe a little positive, but because we're going to make money from writing the options. So there's going to be some money made on options. So you could argue it's accretive from that standpoint. But it's generally neutral the capital raise that they did in the US, right? They didn't do it at 1.6 MNAV, but if you look 5,000 and 5,000, they were required they were able to acquire 5,000 and 5,000, and of course, if you believe Bitcoin's doubling, if you believe Bitcoin's going up, you know, you're still going to accrete. It's still going to be accretive to the company. You know, the rise is still going to be quite accretive. So this is an interesting company to me. And of course, we have one last thing coming up. They haven't launched it yet, but the preferreds are coming. They are in process. They're in discussion. Banks are discussing how to list it. Japan is not too used to preferreds, but the preferreds are coming, and that's still another catalyst for MetaPlanet. So I like MetaPlanet at these levels. I find it cheap. If I buy it again, as always, I will make an announcement on the Patreon. Anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment on this channel. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.